Now that we have entities, we can add the relationships between them. And if we look at our key to the database model, we see that relationships are diamonds. And these can either be found, a diamond can be found in the general category or in the entity relation diagram. So both of these diamonds are very similar. So I'm going to drag a diamond. How are these related? So how is a user related to a phone number? And we can go back to this scenario and try to understand this relationship. But each user has one or more phone numbers. And phone numbers was added as an entity because it is a multi-value attribute. Right? There's more that they can have more than one of them. And so right here we can put a relationship between these two, double click on it, and just simply say has a. Right? So it just simply, the user has a phone number, and that's the relationship between them. What's the relationship between a section and a course? So if we look down here and we see, let's describe a course, has department code, a course number, and it has a title, a description, a number of credits, so lots of information about a course. And a section is a single offering of a course. For example, if we have 1400, we might have 3 sections in fall semester, we might have 2 sections in spring semester, we might have 1 section in summer. So we see that this same course, 1400, is offered more than once. So there are several sections of it in different semesters. So it's a single offering. And so we can say the relationship is a section is just one version of a course or one offering of a course, or a section is based on a course. And here you just have to pick what describes it is. So a section is based on a course. So that very specifically, it's just one single offering of a course. We could also put an offering here, and that's the relationship between section and course. What's the relationship between a phone number and course? There is no relationship. Phone number and section, there's no relationship there. The phone number is related just directly to the user. So what about the user related to section or user related to course? Let's go see if we can find those relations. So here we see that a student can register for a section. So we see this registration relationship, and down here, it's more specific. It says when a student registers, they must register for a specific section of a course. So they don't register for a course, 1400, they pick, I want the 1400 course that's taught on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11:30. They pick a specific section when they register. So we see this relationship then between a user and a section is registers. So a user registers. And we also, from our notes, have a note about that, right? That registers is a relationship. And so we have that specific relationship. Now that's a relationship between a user and a section, specifically a student user. And we get some information about access. So what kind of access do we allow to a database? This would identify permissions. And so if we look at the administrator, which is a different type of user, they can manage the database and can modify the database. Notice that the database itself is not an entity, all right? It's the whole thing, but it doesn't show up as an entity. So this isn't a relationship between the administrator and database. This is permissions. This is identifying what an administrator has access to. So this won't show up as a relationship. Student can register and unregister and see a variety of information. Again, information is not an entity, so this is permissions again. The instructor can add a student to a section, so we see here, again, permission, that this is something an instructor can do, is change who's in a section. So they can add or drop students from a section. And they can publish grades, which is a property, so they can change a property of some entity, whoever has the grades. Let's keep looking and see if we can find some more. Here, students, they can track their major and a couple calculated values. So these are properties of students. So that will be attributes, not relationships. Again, for instructors, here's another attribute. Here we have course and prerequisite course. So remember that in our notes, we identified that this is a relationship between two courses. And so let's look at what that will look like on our diagram. So if we look at our diagram, here we have a course, and it has a relationship with another course. And so we can do this again with a relationship, and we can identify that this course is related to another course. And so the relationship is one course has a prerequisite. So here we identify that, for example, CS 1410 has a prerequisite 1400. Both 1410 and 1400 are going to be courses, and the relationship between those two courses is that CS 1410 has a prerequisite CS 1400. So we're going to see a relationship here that relates two individual courses to each other. And so that's going to show up there. Notice we haven't added connection lines, and so this will, as we add the next step where we add the connection lines, we'll see these connections happening. Now we can go to the section, and let's see if section is related to anything. We already know it's related to a course, and there may be, and that explains that relationship. And a section has a course, a semester, a year, a location, and up to one instructor. So here we see a relationship between a section and an instructor. And remember that an instructor is a type of user, and so there can be up to one. So now this is a different relationship between a section and a user. And this is distinctly different than registers. So we're going to add this as a second type of relationship between a user and a section. And this is really between an instructor user and a section, whereas registers is a relationship between a student user and a section. So section or an instructor teaches a section, right? Or a section has an instructor. You can do it either way. The relationship can go in either direction. So I'm going to say, I think the teaches is more descriptive. So I'm going to say that a user teaches a section, and that's another relationship between them. Now we keep looking through this. We've got that up to one instructor relationship. Section number is going to be an attribute. The semester, it tells us about a semester and the attributes that it has. 3-character building code. Again, these are attributes, individual values. Student registers for a specific section. So we have that relationship is going to be with a section rather than with a course. And each student can only register for section if they have prerequisites. Okay, this is permissions again. Permissions, what instructors can do. Students can remove themselves, again, permission. So those are all permissions. We get down to a grade, and it shows us that these grades are these individual values, which we've identified as an attribute. So we made a note that a grade is an attribute, so that won't show up as a relationship. And there we've hit the bottom. So we've looked through our scenario to identify all the relationships that we could find between these entities and added them to the diagram.